Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Psycho, and I've got another Walking Dead video for you all today. This one is actually going to be The Walking Dead Season 6, Episode 13, titled The Same Boat. Now, this was a very interesting episode. It started out as soon as we finished off in the last episode, and it started with the negotiation scene, and it did show what happened towards the beginning when Maggie and Carol initially got captured, and one thing that I did notice, and it confirmed it later on in the episode, was that it looked as if Carol shot the guy in the arm on purpose. She later on admits in the episode that she had the clear shot to shoot him in the head and kill him, and she could have stopped it all right there, but she didn't. And this is one thing that I do want to mention because I feel like Morgan is definitely rubbing off on Carol, and I'm not liking it one bit. I know that these characters do have to have feelings and stuff, but I feel like Carol is that one character that is just so badass, and we do need to see the other sides. We know what she's gone through, and we know that she goes through that every single day and thinks about that, but I like seeing badass Carol. I like that version a lot more than the scared Carol. Moving back onto the negotiation scene, that was really cool because they made something simple very interesting, such as this negotiation scene. They went back and forth, and of course they turn off the walkie, and the people that have Maggie and Carol, they're like, we're outnumbered, they have more people. And then Rick says something along the lines of, if we didn't have leverage on you, then you wouldn't be talking to us right now. So he knows that they need something from them. They need this guy, Primo, I think that was his name. And it was just interesting to see this play out. I also like the cinematography where they took Carol and Maggie, and I loved how it showed the camera in their position, as if you were in their position, you don't know any of your surroundings, you're just being told whether to turn left, right, stop, and things like that. And it puts you in that spot. It gives you that perspective that you normally wouldn't have if you were just looking on it from a camera angle from the outside where you can see every single thing. So I really do love mystery in TV shows. When they try to add some mystery aspects to something, I really enjoy that. As soon as we get into the facility, it's like a broken down factory, and we get in there, and I noticed something. It said the killing floor on the ground, and we saw that later on as well. There was a sign of that, and what this really did remind me of was No Sanctuary at Terminus, where they had them tied up. They took them into a room, and it looked very similar, especially with the name Killing Floor. It really did remind me of this situation, but we had a different perspective on it. The unknown ideas of the whole situation is what interested me so much, because we don't know who's going to be waiting at that place. We don't know what they're going to do. We don't know their plans. We don't know how this may unfold. And that was what was so cool about the situation. I would like to say that this was a very slow burn episode, but it did pay off in the end. It was interesting to see these characters develop and how they talk to each other and converse. And slowly you see these ideas and metaphors and all of these backstories going back and forth between these newer characters like Carol and the smart aleck woman, the smartass, I don't know her name, the red-haired woman. I really could not stand her at all. They did a great job at making me not like her. I didn't like the way she spoke to Carol and Maggie. I just did not like that character in any way at all, and it was just a good acting job on their part. They made me not like that character. It made me to where I wanted her to die in a very violent way. If a show can make you want a character to die in a really violent way, you know they did a great acting job. It's making you feel this hate. It's almost like an art form. You want them to hate this character and not have any sort of understanding of why you should be on their side. I just want to say that I will always be with Rick's group. I don't care who we face, I'm always going to be backing up Rick's group and supporting them. There was a lot of symbolism and underlying details within this episode that some people might not have noticed. There was definitely a lot of symbolism with the smoking, and that's where we got the title of the episode, where Carol basically tells her what she told, I think it was Miss Neutermeyer before she got killed by the wolves. She was like, that thing will kill you, and she's basically talking about smoking, and the woman says back to her, well, we're in the same boat here. And that's where we get the episode title. So that was definitely interesting because we do see a lot of play with cigarettes and Carol. Even back with the Daryl and Carol episode, around the time of the Coda episode, we saw a lot of cigarette use with Daryl. And I know Yvette Nicole Brown, she noted a lot of things about Fire and Carol and how Daryl put the cigarette up and the smoke would go over Carol, just like it did in this episode as well. We saw one shot where the woman was smoking and the smoke would just come up over Carol's face, and that was really interesting. I also loved how Carol uses her sneaky moves. Once again, she pretends to hyperventilate, and she continues. She was persistent about that. That went on for a good 2 minutes until Maggie finally said something, and I just love seeing her being sneaky because we know Carol will always have something up her sleeve. If she needs to survive, she will. One thing I was kind of nervous about was when Carol stated to the woman that Maggie actually had a child. Now, this could go both ways. It's a double-sided card because they could either be like, oh, well, she's got a baby, we need to be careful with her. Or they could be like, oh, this makes a third person. We have leverage on their group now. So it's a two-sided thing, and you don't really know which way they're going to go. And that woman definitely didn't really feel sorry for Maggie at all. But the woman that was pregnant in the past, I could definitely see her leaning a little bit, but it wasn't all the way. There was another thing that I really found interesting where the red-haired woman was basically talking about before the apocalypse when they took all of the important people and she was a secretary and she went with her boss. Her boss was weak. She was going to take her down with her as well. And she said she took care of him really fast and she lost count after she got into the double digits. And she says, I am not like you. And Carol says, are you sure? And that was really, really cool. I love when they sneak little things in there like that because that's definitely a role similarity between those two characters because she doesn't know how Carol really is because Carol's portraying herself as someone else. It was just really interesting to see Carol because you knew deep in her mind she was thinking, I could be you, I could turn into you if I keep going down this path. But one thing I don't like, I'm really nervous about Carol becoming more soft in this episode. You can definitely tell that Morgan is rubbing off on her. He's changing her, and the experiences that she has had with Morgan is changing her whole life because she's going back and she's questioning everything she's ever done. But I don't think it is necessarily good. Now, Carol has that decent balance of doing some bad things for the greater good, yet these other people are just doing bad things to do bad things, and Carol does have a good balance. It was interesting to see Maggie and the other woman with the mole on her face. She was a little mean now. It was interesting to see them discuss things when she took Maggie back to interrogate her, and Maggie starts asking her about her past, and she said, how did you lose your pinky? I think it was her pinky. And she asked how she lost her finger, and she was like, I stole something, I stole gas when I was trying to get a car to find my dead boyfriend. And then she says she found him and he was blown up. And that leads me to think that maybe her boyfriend happened to be one of the guys in the motorcycle gang, and it definitely could have been the main leader. Now that may be just a stretch, but it's something to point out because those people were blown up. They were definitely blown up. And that's just something that you have to think about. I was also really worried because Carol was giving away certain information like Rick's name. The red-haired woman didn't know Rick's name, and I knew that she picked up on it as soon as Carol said it. And she also explained why she killed those people at the compound, because the Saviors tried to attack our people on the road. And I really did not like how she explained that, because there could have been a possibility of Negan actually finding that out if one of them had gotten away. So that made me nervous as well when she said that, because I thought, if one of them gets away, our group is definitely in trouble now. It was a really cool touch as well when the red-haired woman starts to talk to Rick on the walkie-talkie. She hangs up and pretends everything's okay, and then she says, I know what's going on here, there's not static, that means he's close. And I love really intelligent observations like that. That's when you know someone knows how to survive in this world, when they catch up on little things like that. And I just really love it when you see that a character is being smart and they're catching on to things that we wouldn't normally think about. It also made us afraid for our characters because they didn't know that the other people knew that they were coming in to raid them. So that definitely added some tension to it as well. Moving on to where Maggie and Carol finally start to try and escape. It was cool to see Carol stepping back into that survivalist mode. She takes a deep breath because she knows it's about to get crazy. She gets out her sharpened cross, starts cutting out the duct tape, gets her arms loose, and then she goes and gets Maggie. They come on back, and I'm not sure what they were trying to do with that guy, whether they were trying to take the wraparound thing off of his arm to make him bleed out and die, or if they were trying something else. I know that they weren't trying to save him. I love how they tied the zombie up to wait on that older woman to come in. That was really, really awesome. She walks in the room, the zombie bites her arm, she stabs the zombie, and then you just see her covered in blood. And this woman was just an old hag. I didn't like her as soon as I saw her. Before I even heard her say a word, I hated her. It was just intense to see her covered in blood like that. And then Maggie comes in behind her, bashes her head wide open on the ground. That was badass, and I love seeing Maggie go ruthless on her. And that sort of reminded me of a foreshadowing of a possible Glenn death. If you guys do want to stretch it, it could be possible. And it was cool to see the red-haired woman walk back into the room and see the chaos that has been unleashed. Finally, we get to the part where Carol and Maggie are trying to go through the hallway. The zombies are all speared up. That was definitely a cool transition from the comics to where we get to see all of these zombies impaled and they're blocking the way, and that was just really cool to see. I was honestly really aggravated that Carol didn't take the step and just kill the woman, because she was definitely presenting a threat to her and Maggie and her baby. It had me feeling the same feelings I had with Morgan when he refuses to kill the wolf, and I just did not like that. I want to see Carol do what she needs to do. If we want to discuss a little parallel here, this reminds me of the scene where Morgan fights like 5 of the wolves with his staff, and then he tells them to leave. He gives them a warning before he chooses to kill them, just like Carol gave the red-haired woman a warning before she chose to kill her. And eventually we see the other woman slice Maggie's stomach, and that's when Carol knows that this is done. She goes up, shoots the woman right in the head, and then that's when the red-haired woman realizes Carol has been faking the whole time, and that was cool when we finally see her get the realization. Once again, I was then aggravated that she starts to walk closer, but she doesn't pull the trigger. I was sort of afraid Carol was going to have a Tyrese death there because she refused to kill, and it was making me really, really nervous because I didn't want Carol to go out this way. I loved how Carol finally impaled her on the spike. This woman got a brutal death, and I was definitely satisfied. I didn't want her to go out the easy way. I'm glad she got impaled, and then the zombie bit her on the face. That topped the cake off, and I loved that because this woman did not deserve an easy death. The fact that the woman was a smartass about Carol losing Sophia and saying that maybe she'll get a chance to visit her, and then talking smack about how her husband beat her, that made me feel zero sympathy for her when she died, and I'm definitely glad she died in a brutal way. Just one more thing to note as well, it was really cool when Carol gets on the walkie-talkie and impersonates the woman, like in this really northern accent, where she states, "We're on the killing floor," just like how the woman said it. And I was sort of expecting this and hoping that she tried to imitate her voice, and I'm really glad she did. When I started seeing all of the boots go past the doorway, I began to become afraid that they had a ton of reinforcements, and then I didn't realize it when Carol started smoking. I was like, what are you doing? You're giving out your position by showing the smoke seeping out of the doorway. But then I realized she throws the cigarette in there, shuts the door, and it kills the 2 guys. And that was just some really cool symbolism there about the cigarettes killing you and things like that. In addition to that, it makes it really hard on Carol because she has been questioning her morals lately, and she has to sit there and listen to those men sit there and scream as they're burning alive and their skin is melting off of their face. And she thinks about that, and you know that it's going to run through her head for the rest of her life. And finally we get Rick's group coming in, and they've got the guy named Primo. He asks who Negan is. He says, "You have no choice, we've killed all your people, now you might as well give up the information." And he starts with the idea that Negan was in both places, and then he says that he is Negan. And Rick does not hesitate in any way, and I love the fact that he didn't hesitate at all. He shoots him right in the face, and I just love that scene because it takes it back to where Rick tells the Alexandrians, you all just sit there, plan, and hesitate, and you don't do what you need to do to survive, and that definitely shows that Rick backs up what he says. However, this is bad from a different perspective since some readers know what could happen because we're letting our guard down, and we're letting the idea of us being blindsided seep in the corners, but the group is not seeing it. I really hope you guys enjoyed this review. It means a lot that you watched, especially for my normal watchers and even the newer ones. I really do appreciate you clicking on this video, and if you do want to show some support and leave a like or leave a nice comment, that helps me out an absolute ton. And make sure to leave your opinions below. What are your predictions? What do you think about Carol? What do you think about all of these things that happened in the episode? We are at 9,300 subscribers, and I definitely am going for 10K. If you guys want to help me reach that before the season ends, that would be an amazing amazing accomplishment, and I really would appreciate it. As always, thanks again, guys. Peace out.